Hey, everybody. Welcome to the debut episode of The Coach and the Couch Potato. I'm Jeremy, the Couch Potato. On the other side of the screen, we've got Slate, the coach, and we are blessed to be taking on this journey together. And we want to thank everybody for their support, the likes, the shares, the comments,
Absolutely.
and continue to pound those buttons and share, and let's grow this thing.
Yeah, man.
To just kind of get everything started, we're going to do some intros. I'll go first. I'm Jeremy, and like I said, I'm the couch potato. I am essentially Marion born and raised. I did graduate from Upper Sandusky, so I took a little time off. Blessed to be the father of an awesome son. He's out there doing great things. With that, he's kind of made me a bowling fan to go along with football, which is crazy, but it's really, really cool. So I'm kind of adjusting to that whole empty nest lifestyle with me and the wife.
Must be nice.
Yeah, no bedtimes and dealing with the sick kiddos and everything like that. As far as my Buckeye fandom, it's really weird. My earliest football memories are all NFL. Growing up, we didn't have cable. As crazy as that sounded, it makes me sound really old. So I remember the Cowboys, Bills, Super Bowls, those kind of things. And then for whatever reason, I'm assuming it's because Channel 4 always showed Notre Dame. I actually started watching Notre Dame, and the first thing I truly remember is the 95 OSU Notre Dame game.
Oh, yeah.
One of my sister's friends, her parents actually went to the game. They were season ticket holders, brought me back the program with Eddie on the cover.
Dude.
Or actually, no, it's Bobby Hoying on the cover.
Even better. That's
awesome. Yeah. And then from there, the 02 national championship run was really kind of what took my fandom and put it to kind of to the moon, as the kids say these days. And so from there, we've built on that. It's a major part of my life in a lot of different ways. Spend my Saturdays watching games, spend my downtime following recruiting and coaching changes and all the things we're going to talk about here. And then I've accumulated quite a massive memorabilia collection that you can kind of see behind me.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Killing mine.
Yeah, at some point we'll do a memorabilia tour. That'll be an episode that we do. So what about you?
Yeah, man. Well, first I got to talk about my family. I'm Jared, born and raised Marion, Ohio, Shovel City, City of Kings. Everybody knows. This is home, so I'll always be home. And I've got a wife, beautiful wife, Ernie, 3 little girls. You can see on my hat, a girl dad. I'm thankful for having those little girls. They're crazy as all get out. But we just battled through some sickness. So we're on the other side of that. I'm pretty pumped about that finally. But yeah, I mean, that's me. I've been coaching. I'm entering my 15th year as a football coach. I got my start at Urbana University as a GA with the defense, focus on the defensive backs. Did that for a year. The college game is fun, but the recruiting side of it, man, is as we'll talk about, is it's another beast. And then I set my goal to, come back to Harding and be the head football coach. That was always my goal. So when I got into it, even when I started out at Pleasant, I knew that I eventually wanted to get back to Harding and take care of business there. And fortunate enough, into my career, I was able to do that. It was a dream come true, be the head football coach of Marion Harding for 3 years. Didn't win as many games as I would like to, but the fact that I'm able to say that I did that, like, nobody will ever be able to take that away from me. So that's something I'm always going to be proud of. Spent my last 3 years at Findlay High School, defensive coordinator up at Findlay High School, and it's fun. Got a great group of kids. Fortunate to coach some pretty big time kids, and just to get to see a different side of things it's been pretty cool. As far as my Buckeye fandom goes, it's kind of weird, man. My brother and I, we grew up, and it's like, it pains me to say this because I can't stand the guy now, but we were big Desmond Howard fans. Like, we we would like cut up our socks and play football down in the basement. So it looked like we had like the spat on our cleats. And I didn't really become like a Buckeye fan until my sister started dating a safety named Vinnie Clark for the Buckeyes, or number 7, was an absolute stud. And so that was when I was like, oh, okay, well, my sister's dating this guy for the Buckeyes. I think I need to be a Buckeye fan. And like you, man, the 2002 team, the national championship team, that was big for me, obviously. But what really set me over the edge was watching David Boston in the Rose Bowl against Jake the Snake. Watching him walk into the end zone like that put me over the edge. Like, I wanted to be David Boston. Like, that was my guy, and Joe Germain and those guys. So they really set the tone for me. And then once we got into the recruiting world, as I got older, like, I started following that and kind of became obsessed with it. Now it's a passion, and that kind of led me here, man. So yeah, that's kind of my background. Just glad I'm able to do this with my brother. Jeremy and I have known each other for a long time. I feel like, I feel like I've known you, guys, surprised I was a freshman in high school.
It's crazy. Yeah, that's what I was just doing the math. So you got to figure 05 was when Jaden was born. So
yeah, that was my senior year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget, we met through my sister-in-law, and her showing up to the hospital in her Marion Harding softball uniform. So it's really fitting that we have a picture of my newborn son being held by somebody in a Harding uniform, and now his name hangs on the wall in that gym.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. Jaden, that's my guy. We you kind of were the person that announced me coming back to Harding on your on the Instagram, because your Jaden was sitting there. We had his hands like this and that, and a catch at a camp, and nobody really knew I was coming back, and some people posted that. So yeah, it's crazy how it all connects, man. It's awesome.
It really is, and it's cool to see. The wins might not have been there when you were there, but I've always deemed you a leader of men.
Appreciate that, man.
We both woke up Christmas morning to a text message from a kid that we both coached at 2 different times in his life.
How crazy is that?
That tells you right there that, it doesn't matter when you get a kid, but to have the impact that, obviously we've both had for that kid. And that kid's still doing great things on the hardwood, this season.
Fantastic thing. Yeah, they're killing it right now on the court.
They are. And he's one of the most soft-spoken kids I think I've ever met, but he's got some dog in him. So
he's got some dog in him for sure. Yeah, man. So that's a little background on us. We talk about what you can kind of expect from this podcast. Obviously, we're going to be covering a lot of recruiting stuff. In the day and age of the transfer portal, NIL, there's so many different things that transpire. It's pretty crazy to see the way the college game has gone, and kids are not going to the NFL because they can make so much money now in college. And so, hey, I'm all for it. But that's definitely some of the things we're going to cover. Obviously, when we get into season, we're going to be doing some game recaps. One of the things that, obviously as a coach, one of the things that I would like to do is, I have access to the all 22 film of all of Ohio State games. So I'd kind of like to try to, get into the mind of a coach and try to get people to understand some of the things that, Coach Day or Coach Knowles or some of the other coaches are thinking in different spots of the game. And then, we're going to talk about just sports in general. Like, to watch the Browns get absolutely mauled yesterday was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever watched. So yeah, we're definitely going to
happen by CJ.
Yeah, that definitely makes it a lot easier. It was CJ. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about. And obviously anything else that pops up, we just honestly want to come on here and just hang out, man. We're just a bunch of guys who love the Buckeyes, and we want to make sure that we're doing right by what we're doing on here. So
exactly. And it's really cool, like with the access you have to the all 22, as I look at things from a TV standpoint, you can only see so much. And, you'll text me something that you saw on the film, and then I'll go back and try to find it. I'm like, you know what? It's not as bad as it looked. And, a lot of it's scheme, so that it's really cool to have access to that.
Yeah.
With what you hit on about recruiting's wild, and the portal. I've always been a players guy.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate to befriend a lot of guys, through, like I said, I have an extensive memorabilia collection. So with that comes connections. And, to see, like, everybody thinks that it's all glamorous, being a D1 guy because you're getting a full ride. And there's a whole lot more to it. So
much more.
And along with that, we saw it this week. Coaches have always had the ability to come and go as they please. And until recently, the players had no recourse. And so now with the portal, you see these guys having freedom that they deserve.
Absolutely.
And, it's been a busy couple of weeks for the Buckeyes in the portal.
It's been a huge couple of weeks, man.
Added Will Howard, Quinshawn Judkins, Seth McLaughlin, and the tight end from OU, Will Kasmerek. So each of those guys definitely brings something a whole lot different to the team. But I definitely feel like they all bring something the team needs.
Absolutely.
Will Howard, obviously, most important position on the field. And the comparison I've kind of thrown out there is I feel like he's a bigger, stronger JT Barrett.
And I think that's a great comparison. I really do.
And you watch him and, he doesn't quit. Dude's a competitor.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the biggest thing that he brings. Being a defensive guy, I'm sure you can kind of give us some more insight on what you see out of him.
Yeah, man. I think he's a massive human being. I mean, that's the first thing that comes out. He's every bit of 6'5", 240 pounds plus. He's almost like got that early Ben Roethlisberger career, that type of build. Doesn't have the arm strength that Ben Roethlisberger would have, but from a size perspective, I think, it's very comparable. He's a lot faster than I thought, man. Like straight line speed. I had the opportunity to watch his game against Texas in the All-22, and obviously Texas was a semifinal team, and he had some big runs in there. And I'm like, okay, this kid's got some. He's got some juice. He's not going to make you miss, but he'll lower his shoulder and run through you, and he can run by you as well. So I like it, man. I think he's a great addition. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of pulling for us to get like Dylan Gabriel, somebody of that ilk. But I think Will Howard has an opportunity to provide something that we haven't had, and that's a quarterback run game. I think that's such a missing piece of what we're doing, just what we've had the last couple of years. Even with CJ, he had the ability, but he didn't always do it. So just somebody that when it's not there, he can still tuck it and get you, 8 to 10 yards. We saw that with JJ McCarthy. I mean, our game this year against the team up north, that arguably is the difference. He was able to extend some plays. So definitely need that type of quarterback to get to where we want to go, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say, about CJ, because I literally just saw on Twitter this morning the play from the bowl game last year where CJ ran for like 25 yards to set up the field goal.
Absolutely.
Like, where has that been all year? And then even Houston tried to run him yesterday for a touchdown.
Yeah.
But there's nothing better for a quarterback run game than a good running back. And we already had some. And then to go add a dude like Quinshawn Judkins out of the portal, it's kind of mind blowing because that's not the type of dude that we normally have ever gone after out of the portal.
No.
Obviously we had Justin. When we got Justin, that was a big splash.
Yeah.
But I actually was looking back through our conversation, and when Judkins declared, my exact text to you was, he's getting a bag from somebody. Who is it? And your reply was, not us.
Not us. I didn't think that was possible, man.
And lo and behold, next thing you know, he's in Columbus.
Yeah.
And the dude's a home run hitter. I mean, he is he's got a little bit of physical to him, a little more lower your shoulder and go, but he's dynamite. To do what he's done in that conference. And it's hilarious because, everything ties into sports memorabilia. And so sitting on my desk, I have a stack of football cards.
Yeah.
And, one of the perks of NIL is, we can do cards in college uniforms. And bought a couple boxes, back like November, December. And lo and behold, Quinshawn autograph. I'm like,
that's awesome.
What are the odds?
Yeah.
So dude is definitely a home run hitter. I mean, how do you stop a guy that runs the way he does?
Dude, you better wrap up. You can't attack him high. You've got to eyes through the thighs. The old Pete Carroll saying, eyes through thighs, drive for 5. I mean, those are those are guys that he can run through you, and there's a few clips out there where he's going to make you look silly in the hole as well. The thing I love about him, he's not like a true like burner. He just runs hard. And I think adding him to what Travion's strengths are as well, I think you're looking at guys that are going to get 15 plus carries a game a piece. You're talking about two guys that honestly, like you could work with trying to get 20 touches a piece. And I think that's great. The fact that they're willing to be in the backfield together for defensive coordinators, that's going to be a nightmare to have to deal with. The one thing I love about Quinshawn, man, and it's his story. The way that it's honestly why I was kind of shocked he left Ole Miss. There's that picture of Lane Kiffin at one of Quinshawn's games, and Lane Kiffin's just sitting there by himself in the pouring down rain. And, this was in some circles just a normal 3-star kid. But Lane Kiffin saw something in him and he wanted to make it known. And so like he was pulling out all the stops to make sure he got him to, Ole Miss and to see that happen, it was pretty cool and it was nice to follow. And the kid turned out to be great. And now he's a Buckeye, that's just nuts. And even Lane Kiffin, he's shown support for Quinshawn, even though he's left.
Yeah. I mean, and the cool thing, the other thing that jumps out to me, and, on the football side of it, everybody talks about who are your offers from? Who are your offers from? And this kind of Yale offer.
Yeah.
I mean, so that tells you right there that, it's more than a game for him.
Yeah.
The kid has obviously an amazing head on his shoulders. Seems like he's got a great family support system. When he committed to the Buckeyes, that's one of the cool things with social media is, you see a lot of these kids' families and you see the support that they do have. And, his family right away was all in. And, you left a program that is arguably had the best offseason of anybody in the portal.
Talk about dropping a bag. Jeez,
the Lane train is rolling. And, that's a dude that, probably took a call from Bama and said, I'm staying at the SIP. And, speaking of Bama, that brings, to the next kind of guy in the portal. Very polarizing. Seth McLaughlin didn't have his best game against Team Up North.
No, he didn't.
But there's something there. The rumors were out there when he committed that we were looking at him as a guard. I think that's kind of been put to the wayside.
Yep.
But the best comparison I saw for the struggles that he had with the snaps, it's like a golfer with the yips.
Yep.
It can be fixed. And when you look at his pass pro numbers, he's given up like 1 sack in 3 years.
Yeah.
You can't teach that.
Nope.
And that's still the wild card. Just like we'll hit on when we kind of recap the 23 season. You go as far as your O-line takes you. And,
absolutely.
It'll be interesting to see the dynamic, as far as getting that fixed. But I think that it's there. And he brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, he definitely brings a lot to the table. I think, people get caught up in those couple snaps. I know he had a couple bad snaps against Auburn, I think it was this year too. But let's be real, guys. He was a 3-year starter for the GOAT. Like Nick Saban's not just putting anybody out there to say like, oh yeah, we're just going to put him out here and he's a liability. Like, no, like you're going to play because you can play at a championship level. And that's one of the things that I always have to remind people about. Don't get caught up in those couple bad snaps. Like, yeah, that stuff happens, but look at what he's done. Look at his total body of work. And I think, having that experience added to our offensive line is going to be huge. He only knows playing at that championship level. He's always played in those big games. So I think the other thing people need to look at too is, he had 2 new starters next to him this year as well. And that unit of 5 up front, I mean, it's a true unit, and you're really only as good as a person next to you as well. So, when you've got 2 new guys and you're a veteran guy, you're trying to bring them up as well. And, you're going to see a little bit of a fall off from the years prior. But I think with his experience, with, the program that he came from specifically, I think it's a great fit for something that the Buckeyes need. I think it's good for the young guys on the roster or on the offensive line as well. The Josh Padillas, the Lukes, the the young guys who honestly are Justin Fry's guys. They need somebody that they can turn to that's been in the trenches and has won those big games. And so I think it's going to be a huge, huge asset in addition to the offensive line.
Absolutely. So we're excited about that. And then, obviously, like, it's probably the most unheralded portal edition so far. Kazmarek.
Yeah,
The kid's a freak, though. If you
dude.
watch his tape, I mean, this kid
Yeah,
didn't come here to sit. I think what's really cool about his skill set from what I've seen is he's super athletic, which,
yeah,
so he's going to bring a similar style of play to Jelani and Demarion, which I'm not so sure that, we'll touch on that at some
yeah.
point.
Demarion, he might be a receiver.
He may end up in zone 6.
Yeah,
But, and I still think, I'm not writing off G. I think that
yeah,
he just had to get his body right to be a tight end. You lose a dude like Cade Stover, and you've got to bring somebody in
absolutely.
to check some of the boxes. And I'm excited to see what this guy can do.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think, this is a huge opportunity for him. I mean, it's not a knock on Ohio football. It's still D1 football, but to make that jump to Ohio State, like he's going to give everything he's got. And I think it's important, as we've seen in years past, especially, the year we played Georgia, you can't have enough good blocking tight ends. And right now, what you're going to see is, we got Jelani, and Jelani's a freak. Like he's going to make some plays for us. And you got G, who's starting to figure things out as a blocker. But you need more than that. Everybody else is kind of unproven in that room. Obviously, we lost Joe Royer. I think it was Bennett Christian he was out last year, suspended for something. Sam Hart, I don't know what's going on with him. You've got to figure out, who you can add to that room, and each individual skill set is valuable to the offense. I mean, you're gonna see Brian Day's done it every single year. He plays 3 or 4 tight ends. So having somebody out there and being able to play to that skill set that Kazmarek brings, I think it's going to be a very unsung addition, but I think it's going to pay dividends for where they're trying to go next year. Also, it's going to help out our run game quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there are times that you need 3 tight ends lined up on the line of scrimmage and just to get a yard. And
absolutely.
That's probably the Achilles heel of Cade was his blocking at times. And some of that was scheme. You watch and it's like, was that really his guy? So it looks like him on film. And that's, obviously something as we get through this thing that you'll tag in and, be able to go over is, well, really, this is who's supposed to get him. But for all the good of Cade, if as a fan, the one thing that you would scratch your head at as you sit there and watch the game on TV is you do feel like he whiffs some blocks. Which honestly, going to the next level, tight ends are not asked to block nearly as much anymore. It's a lot of chip and release, which is perfect for him. Because Cade was a freak athlete, and a lot of people don't realize it. Dude was an amazing basketball player.
Dude, he was a stud basketball player, and if you watched his high school tape, he lined up at free safety in a 3-3-5 defense, and they just said go. And that dude made a million tackles. I mean, it was so impressive to watch. I was shocked. Like, I thought he always needed to stay on the defensive side of the ball. Like, I just thought that was where his strength was. But this year he turned out, I mean, he showed that athleticism, in my opinion. And he was a vital part of the passing game for sure.
For sure. So we do lose him. And then obviously the big loss, which I mean, I don't think anybody in the world can blame him, is Marv. I always said if there was one dude that was going to buck the trend, it would have been him. And I truly think he was probably conflicted.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can pass up being, depending on what Chicago does, there's a chance he goes 1. I think somebody makes him a deal, that they can't pass up to move up and get Caleb. But, Marv is awesome. So losing him, but with the losses, we have had a plethora of good news in the last 2 weeks.
Dude.
As a Buckeye fan, I don't remember an off season like it.
Me either. Me either. And one thing on Marv really quick, that like $25 million number that NIL was willing to pay him. Yeah, that wasn't, I don't think that was true. Based on some conversations that I've had, that idea that he was
Exactly.
going to be able to make that much money in college was not going to happen. But from the people I've talked to or within the program and around the program, he was legitimately conflicted. And that says a lot. You know, everybody kind of bashes Ryan Day's culture a little bit, but it kind of says a lot when you got a dude who is a surefire top 5 pick and he's considering coming back. Like that tells you something. And so along those lines, though, with the guys that we've had come back, man, you know, I have a strong dislike for giving the team up north much credit about anything, but the reason why they won a championship this year is because they were such a veteran and battle-tested team. And I think, you know, with the Buckeyes, we've kind of fallen into that SEC, you know, hey, I'm here for 3 years and I'm gone no matter what. And to see these guys who are all, I mean, the majority of them were within the top 100 NFL prospects, to see these guys be willing to sacrifice that and say, you know, we've got unfinished business. Like, kudos to the coaching staff for making that happen. You know, I know that there were so many people pushing for us to be aggressive in the portal, but you need to recruit your own guys. Like, if you want to get those, if you want to be a veteran team, like, you got to go get Jack Sawyer to come back. You got to go get, you know, Jalen to come back. Like, that is being able to do that, man. Kudos to that coaching staff for making that happen, because I know it wasn't easy. I know it wasn't
no, easy. And you know, it's a brotherhood, and I think you hit. You know, everybody has ragged on the culture because when you recruit at the level we've recruited at, you're recruiting guys who, when they declare their choice, you know, it's for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's about, you know, getting to the league. You know,
Yep.
we have been an NFL factory, but to get a crew who, you know, a lot of these guys, you know, didn't come in real, you know, highly heralded, you know, like the Ty Leaks and the Ty Hamiltons, you know, those guys. And those are the guys who, to me, are some of the more important ones, if we're being honest.
Absolutely.
You know, we watched, you know, Ty Hamilton's brother become a 3rd-round pick, and everybody's like, oh, we just took him because he was a local kid. No, you know, those Hamilton brothers are legit. And I mean, honestly, Ty Leak, I think, you know, everybody, Mike Hall was a stud. You know, let's not
Absolute
forget,
stud.
you know, let's not forget Mike. And I think, you know, we're not claiming to be insiders, you know, by any means.
No.
But, you know, you do put the tea leaves together, we'll say.
Yeah.
And you know, it sounds like Mike had family obligations. And that's a grown man move.
Grown man decision, man. And
you know,
he's making that at 21. You know,
exactly. You
I'm
know,
37 and I struggle making some of those grown man decisions.
Exactly. So, you know, I hope him the best, and I think he's athletic enough that he'll do well there too. But, you know, again, you get Tyleek, you get Ty, and then my guy Jack Sawyer.
Oh man,
the best, probably the best defender in the last 3 or 4 games of the season.
Absolutely.
You know, he turned it up. And that's another dude who people don't realize how athletic he is. The guy played quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, and at a high level, you know,
at a very high level.
And then, you know, the one that you and I talked about a lot, Denzel. You're talking about a guy who was going to be a 1st-round pick. You know, you don't. But he wants to be the first corner taken. You know, not the 2nd or 3rd guy.
Yeah. And I think that is. I think that is awesome. Like, that was the one guy, him and Jalen were the 2 guys I'm like, they're probably going to go. But to see both of those guys come back again, like, they have their different motivations. Obviously, you want to come back and beat the team up north and win the Big Ten and win a natty, but you also want to prove, like, you know, there is zero doubt. Like, I'm a top 15, top 20 pick. And one thing Denzel Burke was very open about too. And I don't fault him for this. the difference between a a second round pick and a first round pick as far as like the pay is concerned was huge. And he was like, like from a business standpoint, it makes sense. If I think I can come back and be, a top 5 guy, a top 10, 15 guy, you're talking tens of millions of dollars in difference, So I think for him to be able to look at it from that business sense as well, like that's another thing about college football. Like, you're thinking about it in such different ways, like I could still come back and make money, but you're truly making like real business decisions. So
Yeah,
definitely pumped to
absolutely.
have him back, man. Like I think him and the other guy, Jordan Hancock. Jordan Hancock might be my favorite player and favorite DB in the last like 5 years. Like this dude, had opportunities to transfer last year, stuck around. They bring in Igbinosun, which I'm sure that didn't sit well originally with Jordan Hancock because he wanted to be the next guy up, but then he just found his place. He found his spot on the defense and he's excelling. And I think he's one of the best slot corners in the country. And if you look at the NFL now, he's really truly setting himself up for so much success at the next level. And so I think, that dude, Jordan Hancock is special. And I was pretty pumped that he came back too.
And he's a turnover machine.
Yes, he is, man.
And so many people underestimate the role of a slot corner.
Oh man.
The comparisons that are being thrown around to this backfield right now, are the Okuda, Arnett, Sean Wade, like that
Dude,
group.
that was a talented group, man.
And Sean is somebody who I have gotten to know a little bit, and Sean got done such a disservice when they moved him outside.
Dude.
If you let Sean live in the slot, he's your original Jordan Hancock.
Yeah.
And
he was elite in the slot.
Oh, without a doubt. And so for me, Jordan is kind of your guy out of this group.
Yeah.
For me, it's got to be Travion. I know that's it's the easy answer. But the guy's never really had a healthy season. And he is a home run threat every time he touches the ball. And honestly, he just seems humble. And that's a big one for me. So to get him back, you hate to say, oh, we would have been fine without him, but the potential was still there for that room.
Yeah, absolutely.
But from a leadership side, I think the guy who excites me the most is actually Lathan Ransom.
Yeah.
That safety group, a little bit of turmoil right now because I think, the elephant in the room is what he do with Sonny.
Yeah.
And so I think with Lathan coming back, ideally that gives you the freedom to probably put Sonny in the box, but we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see about that. I think Lathan Ransom, before he got hurt, he was playing at a pretty high level. And so to get that experience back in the back end is huge. I think that it's also important to realize when you were talking about Trey, that dude's dealt with a lot. I've done some research, listened to some different podcasts that were talking specifically about him. I didn't realize his upbringing and things like that were so difficult. And to get here, and so many people were questioning his toughness because he couldn't stay healthy, and to battle through that, and to finally get to a point where he's healthy and he's running so violent and he's just doing all these things at a high level. But, the team wasn't achieving the goals that he and the other guys set out to achieve. And for him to kind of, like you said, humble himself and be like, you know what, like, I still want to come be a part of this. I still want to be a part of Buckeye Nation and the brotherhood. Like, you talk about mental toughness. You talk about knowing who you are and being comfortable in your own skin. I think as fans, we overlook that sometimes, like the mental side of things. It's not easy to be a player for Ohio State. You can't go anywhere without people, bombarding you. And, I couldn't imagine being Kyle McCord this last year. Like, oh my gosh, like I can't imagine, the things that they deal with. And obviously you sign up for that when you go to Ohio State, but they're 20-year-old guys, man. They're not that, they shouldn't have to deal with that, but it's part of it. And to see Trey make that another grown man decision and to put his ego aside and welcome a Quinshawn Judkins in here and understand the good things that they could do together. Like, that's a big deal, man. That's a grown man. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And then, obviously you add a veteran, you bring the veteran running back, and you lose Marv, but you get to keep Emeka.
Yeah.
And again, another guy who was kind of dinged up all year, kind of has that chip on his shoulder. I got something to prove. And at the end of the day, I mean, if Emeka doesn't come back, your wide receiver room is very inexperienced.
Very inexperienced.
And you may be going to the portal to find one just to bring somebody in with some leadership. But another kid who, super high ceiling. Depending on where you look, late first, early second, but now he comes back with a chance to cement himself and, make some money. I mean, and like Denzel said, not only is the amount of money from a second round guy to a first round guy a big difference, you get that 5th year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of people don't realize that. And that's just like, a lot of these guys have the potential to become first round picks. And, NIL's great. And, yes, these guys are getting some really good money. But like with the Marv rumors, sure, there could have been a package put together that would have rivaled his first year salary.
Yeah.
But you start talking signing bonuses and everything like that.
Guaranteed money, yeah.
And you're a year closer to that second deal. So, like, for a lot of these guys, that's where you're going to make your money.
Yep.
So you take a guy like JTT. A lot of people don't remember JTT was the number 1 recruit in the country when he came out.
Yes.
And this was a guy who was so thorough in his decision and his process.
Yeah.
And, COVID threw a wrench into it. But, he didn't announce until July 4th. You're 4 weeks from camp starting at that point, essentially. And
I forgot all about that. I forgot he signed that late.
Wow. It's one of those things that we were playing a championship travel baseball game that day, and I had my phone. I was doing scorebook on the tablet, and then I had my phone out hitting refresh on Rivals.
Yeah.
So you've got that, and that's a dude who has shown flashes. So I'm really excited to see what he brings back on the field. Obviously off the field, I think he's a leader.
Absolutely.
And so that's exciting. And then talking about what added Seth McLaughlin does, bringing Donovan Jackson back. You've basically shored up the left side of your line.
It's big.
You get the right side hammered out, but again, you've got a guy who is almost like a gentle giant, like when you hear him talk. But he's a leader again. That word gets thrown around a lot, but what these dudes have done truly is leadership.
Absolutely. I mean, you think, we want to bring it closer to home. I think back to when my brother was at Harding, and I think that 2001 team, the year before they were 5-5. The following year they had, 30 plus seniors, and they go out and beat Justin Zwick in the first round of the playoffs. Like, having that veteran leadership is like, it is vital to the success. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have guys that you can count on that will get in that foxhole with you, that care about the brotherhood, like, that is something that, Michigan has had. I'll be honest, the last 3 years they've had it, and I'm glad to see Ohio State is really working to get those veteran guys to come back. And even getting the veteran guys in the portal as well. They're not just taking anybody, they're taking proven guys. And so I'm excited about that, man. I think it's going to pay huge dividends next year. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a part of me, I just love seeing Ryan Day just say, screw it, I'm all in, man. Like, let's do it.
And truthfully, I mean, he's got to be. I've never been on the whole Ryan's got to go wagon. But, like you mentioned, the team up north had 44 guys walk in senior day this year.
It's insane.
A lot of people will downplay that, but a lot of those guys were 5th and 6th years too.
Yeah.
And so, you had 22, 23-year-old guys going against 18, 19, 20-year-olds. yes, Ohio State is a world-class strength and conditioning program. But at the end of the day, you can only do what your body allows you to do.
Yep.
And so that's a big difference. So getting a lot of these guys back is awesome. You know, so the roster is essentially, you know, at 84, 85. You know, we did get the late addition yesterday of Rogers coming back, which is not lost.
No. The kid's talented, man.
He is.
He's talented.
And it's cool to see, you know, that's what's great about the portal. You know, if you think you want to explore your options, explore them. But you can still come back so long as the school you're leaving is willing. And I think we'll have, you know, some defections come spring. But I also am not so sure, you know, there's still not, you know, the wild card and everything right now is Bama. You know, what happens with these Bama guys? Seth Murphy entered the portal yesterday.
Saw that.
A kid who we were after for a while, and then something cooled off. But CJ Hicks, Captain Buckeye, was out there tweeting the eyeball emoji today.
I know.
So,
and that's
but has Will Howard followed him on Instagram yet? That's the question. And then obviously the giant elephant in the portal room is if Caleb Downs goes in.
He is a difference maker, man. That kid. You know, I'm a defensive guy, so I get pumped up about, you know, safeties. Like Caleb Downs, man, that dude. Oh man, I wanted him to be a Buckeye so bad last year. Like, he is special. And if he decides to enter, no, he hasn't done it yet, but if he decides to, and we're able to snag him up, like, now you're talking that secondary is
elite.
It's pretty dangerous. And now you have the ability to move Sonny down the linebacker. If that's something that they want to do.
I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, he was elite coming out of high school. He was elite as a freshman. And he's just special. There's no other way to put it. I mean, he's obviously a 3-year guy. You know, go get your bag.
Absolutely.
But, you know, in today's world, what's crazy is, you know, you can have a position group who is playing good on the field. You know, until Lathan got hurt, the Ohio State safety group was playing really good. You know, Josh Proctor, kudos to that guy. You know, 60-year guy. You know, and progressed every year. But, you know, I truly believe recruiting is why Perry Eliano is out of a job. You couldn't close. You know, Caleb, who was arguably, you know, obviously was your number one target, and he even gave you a second chance. I mean, he came to campus as an Alabama commit, which is unheard of. And you know, then you couldn't close KJ Bolden, which I think there's a little bit of smoke there that he wants to play wide receiver, which I get, you know, if you think that's where your future is. But yeah, you've got to be able to recruit, and you know, with that, you know, that was probably part of the reason Perry Eliano was gone. You know, so I think there's definitely obviously been coaching staff changes. You know, starting there, he was the first guy gone. And then bringing Coach G back, who you know, a lot of people have criticized because, you know, it gives us PTSD of Urban Meyer and Billy Davis.
It does.
But I think it's a lot different.
Yeah, that's, you know, I've been very fortunate. Obviously, you know, one of my high school coaches is down there at Ohio State now. I've had access to a lot of the practices, even gotten to sit in the meeting rooms and stuff like that. The first thing I'm going to say is Coach Eliano, like, he's a great coach. Like, you know, cool story about him. So I had the opportunity to take my dad down to spring practice last year, and we had full access. I mean, we were allowed to stand right in the middle of special teams drills, the individual for each position group. And I naturally gravitate to the defensive backs. It's just where I always end up. And, you know, I'm always taking notes, seeing what I could take back to our guys and things like that. And, you know, my dad's just sitting there, he's just watching. My dad like sees Josh Proctor and he's like, Jesus, he's a safety. I'm like, yeah, he's a massive human being. Well, Coach Eliano like sees me standing there and he was like, so what are you trying to take away from the day? And I was like, honestly, right now, one of the things that we're struggling with is our first step. I'm trying to come away with some different drills that we could work on our first step. I want to make sure it's unison. I want to make sure we're really locked in on that and show how important it is to not only man coverage, but zone coverage as well. And my dad sees us talking really quick, and like Coach Eliano completely stops and he turns around and looks at me and says, "Is this your pops?" I was like, "Yeah, this is the first time he's ever been in the Woody for a practice." And we stopped talking about football, and he went straight over to my dad and introduced himself, was yes sir, no sir with my dad. And like the smile my dad had on his face, like it's something that I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about it. It's something I will never forget. So Coach Eliano, I don't know if you'll ever listen to this, man, but you gave my dad a memory that he's going to take. He just turned 70 the other day, so he's going to take this with him for the rest of his life for sure. So I hate to see Coach Eliano go, but it's a business. And, that's like you said, Coach Day flat out said the biggest thing he looks for in a coach is being able to recruit. And it's not a knock on, who we've brought in. I think the Malik Hartfords, the Jihad Carters, I think the guys that we brought in are talented kids. I really do. But when you have an opportunity to close on a Caleb Downs, you got to be able to go do that. And, with the guy we're bringing in, Coach G, I'll probably butcher his last name, so we're just going to call him Coach G for right now. The thing I love about him, man, and I'll say this till I'm the day I'm no longer here. You got to recruit scheme over stars, and Coach G knows the exact scheme that Coach Knowles is wanting to run. He's in full alignment with that because it's something that he wants to do. He's been in it for 8+ years, so he knows who to go after. If we miss on those big fish, he's able to go identify somebody who fits the exact need that we have at that position. And that can't be, underestimated. That is so important. So him bringing that, and you heard Lathan Ransom come out and talk about Coach G, how that was his guy when he was here 2 years ago. And he also left here to go be a co-DC at 33 years old. Like that's you don't see that often, especially at Power 5 schools. And I know it's Indiana, but Tom Allen's a legit defensive guy. Like he knows his stuff. He's obviously going to be at Penn State this year. And for him to have confidence in a 33-year-old young coach to come in and call his defense, like that's a big deal. So I'm excited about Coach G, man. I think he's going to do some great things. And, hate to see Eliano go, but I get it.
Yeah, for sure. And then, also as far as, the changes so far, Parker Fleming, you never want to see a dude lose a job.
No.
I don't care. I don't care if it's a college football coach or if it's
Absolutely.
a guy, flipping burgers. Everybody's working to provide for their family.
Yeah. Hey, quick disclaimer: I will never vouch for a coach to be fired. That will never, ever happen on here. I will never say that. I know on a much lower level than Ohio State, but I know the work that Parker Fleming put in to make sure that those special teams were on point. I've been able to be at practices and see how intense those special teams practices and those special teams drills are. And I know that he gave everything he had. I sat in a meeting with him and Tony Alford one day talking about special teams, and like to see the level of commitment to just the punt team in general. Like it didn't pay off at times. Obviously, we saw that on Saturdays, but it wasn't because of lack of effort. Could there have been could there have been some teaching things that along the way that he may have, misstepped on? Yeah, that stuff, I'm sure that happened, but, hate to see that go. But, like you were probably getting ready to say, at the college level, the idea of having a full-time special teams coordinator you don't see that too often. So
not at all.
It'll be interesting.
Especially, we were spoiled where when Urban was here, your head coach was running your special teams.
Yep.
And that's one thing I think, probably started to set the board. But even under Urban, yes, on the defensive side of special teams, we were really good. We were blocking kicks. But when was the last time that you kicked a ball to Ohio State, be it a kickoff or a punt, and you actually feared that the guy catching it was going to take it to the house?
Jordan Hall?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't remember. That's about, yeah, I don't remember. Like that's,
I mean,
what,
it's, when Chip got here, the running joke was we have a linebacker returning kicks.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and as we saw, Chip turned out to be a really good running back.
really good.
And I think he's going to thrive, going to Kentucky and get a chance to be the guy.
Yeah,
And, but back to the special team stuff, it just, yeah, that's my thing is, you're so handcuffed with the 10 coaches to give one guy special teams and solely special teams. I think it's an interesting judgment. And I think you're going to see that change as when they announce Coach G's hiring, he'll have other responsibilities.
yeah,
So I think, right now we're still coach short. And that's pending any other attrition that happens, be it,
yeah,
people moving on to other opportunities. So as it sits right now, I think you've got the defensive side of the ball. I think you're fine. I think
yeah, I do too.
Coach Walton can take on the entire secondary.
Yeah,
And that dude is recruiting like a dog.
out of his mind.
He is the Brian Hartline of the defense.
Yeah,
I think, the logical move is obviously to hire another offensive guy. I think the public is calling for James Laurinaitis to get the job.
yeah, for sure.
I think James is cool if you read the tea leaves with, doing the GA thing one more year and having a job after that.
And the GAs at Division I colleges get paid a lot more than GAs at Urbana University. I will say that. I saw how much he could possibly make, and I was like, okay. Like, I see why he's okay with doing it maybe for another year.
Well, and, you got to factor in, you've got a guy sitting on NFL money. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure that James was very, very good with his money.
Yeah.
To hear James talk, James is just, built different. But look at the family he comes from. I mean,
yeah, I know, man.
James's dad is arguably one of the most recognizable guys in all of, professional wrestling to start with.
Professional wrestling, yeah.
When James's dad wrestled, pro wrestling was huge. And, so
those shoulder pads.
Oh, yeah. I dressed up one year for Halloween. I did not dress up as him. I dressed up as Hawk.
Yeah.
But we took the old, Ohio State play set shoulder pads and put some foil on them. And, it was cool walking around Colonial Acres and everybody's like, oh my gosh.
Colonial Acres.
So it's cool to see, James come back home. And I think, next year will be his time. If we go to the offensive side, Day's got to give up play calling. I think that's one of his fatal flaws right now. It's one of those things to where you're coaching at one of the 5 biggest programs, if not, 2 or 3. If we're being real, you're a CEO. Yes, you can have final say, especially in an end of game situation. But you have to account for being able to manage.
Yeah.
So I would like to see, a true OC, somebody come in and mentor Heartline. Heartline's got the co-OC job title. I think there was some, play calling explorations in the spring.
Yep.
And there are some wild names being tossed out there.
Yeah. Some crazy names.
A lot of NFL guys, which will be interesting to see. But we've kind of narrowed down a couple that we think are probably the realistic ones.
Yeah.
I'll just go ahead and throw them all out there, and then I'll kind of let you kind of break down what they each bring. Probably my pick right now would be Jason Candle, head coach at UT. Joe Moorhead at Akron, and then you get into Liam Cohen, who is the OC at Kentucky, who has a little bit of an NFL pedigree, I think.
Yep.
And
the Bears are wanting to interview him too right now for their offensive coordinator job.
And as a Justin fan, I hope they find a guy who can let Justin eat. And the wild card name that's been floated out there is Dan Mullen. problem that, my 2 cents on that one, just real quick, is I just think that's a Band-Aid. I
I agree.
don't think he would be around long. And, obviously you want your coordinators to be getting considered for jobs, but you need some continuity too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The one thing I will say, man, it's, having been a head coach before, you know, I was hired as the head coach because of some of the stuff that we did defensively when I was, as the defensive coordinator. So when you're hired as a head coach and the reason why you're hired, you're going to give up, that is not an easy thing to do. So I totally get, and I could, again, on a much, much lower level, but I totally get that, Ryan Day has struggled with the idea of giving up play calling. I mean, our offense has been one of the top offenses in the country since he's been here. So that would be tough. But I do think, with a program like Ohio State, the CEO thing is huge. I mean, just as off season alone, like I just look at all the things that we've done in a month. You know what I mean? And to not have to look at, okay, I've got to look at this thing in a microscope of the offense, but then I also have to look at this thing in in a macro way. It's like it just could be a lot for him. So if he decided to, I totally get why if he didn't decide to, but if he did, the guys you just named, if I had to pick one, I'm a little partial, coaching up in Northwest Ohio right now, having met Coach Candle a few times, him inviting us up to camps, like he's the real deal. He's a good dude. He's a lot younger than people think he is. He's only like 43 years old. But I believe that he has aspirations to be a Power 5 head coach. And so to be able to bring in somebody with that head coach experience, a winning experience, he provides something from an offensive standpoint that I guess you could say Coach Day has not necessarily been willing to do, and that's the quarterback run game. You've got a guy now, and even with Lincoln Keenholz and Devin Brown, and you got guys that can run the ball. So let's make that a part of the offense. So I think he brings that thing or that level of expertise to the offense. If he were to be the guy, I love Coach Moorhead as well. I mean, what he did against us when he was at Oregon, now we made it pretty easy on him to run the ball out of certain situations, but I think the versatility and the creativeness in the run game that he would bring is something that I think Coach Day would definitely welcome. Liam Cohen at Kentucky. I will just say this: anybody who comes from that Shanahan, Sean McVay, tree of coaches, like I'm all for it. Like I think their creativity, the way that they utilize each player's strengths, I think it's just so huge. You get enamored with the Marvin Harrison Juniors and things like that, which is all great, but each player brings something different. I just think of like Xavier Johnson this past year. The way that we used him, we found ways that played to his strengths. And I know he didn't get the ball a ton, but it was success just about every time he touched the ball. Those are the things that you're going to see with a guy like a Liam Cohen coming from that McVay, Shanahan type tree, just getting the ball to their playmakers and playing to the strengths of not just the playmakers, but the offensive line and the quarterback as well. You see the success of a guy like Brock Purdy. You saw what McVay was able to do with the Jared Goff. Like you just have such a diverse background when it comes to that tree of things that they can do. So I would love that. And Dan Mullen, I mean, do I think that's going to happen? No. I'm actually pretty shocked that he's a name that gets brought up. Obviously an offensive, some would say like a guru. But if I'm Coach Day, I want to separate myself from that Urban Meyer tree. Not a knock on Coach Urban. Obviously, he's a GOAT, but I would be very hesitant to do that because, Day is fighting his own battles right now. And there are people saying we want Urban back. Well, like I would hold off on doing that, but I would totally get it if he did it. You want somebody to mentor Heartline. Mullen's going to come in for a couple years. He's over 50 years old, I believe, and that would be a great guy to mentor Heartline. I really do think so. But those are the four guys, we've kind of hit on, narrowed down. If I had to pick one, I would pick Coach Candle. I think he gets it. And I just think he's a good guy. I think he's young. I think that he'll be able to relate to the kids and will be able to recruit as well. And I'm partial to Mount Union coaches too. Like that is just a wealth of talent that has come out of Mount Union, out of Alliance, Ohio, when it comes to coaching. So Coach Candle will be the guy that I would go with for sure.
Yeah, and if you believe the Toledo TMZ, as our friend DJ would say, supposedly Candle and some of the offensive guys were at dinner this week.
Yeah.
The staff was up watching Carter Lowe play basketball. And, obviously there's always a connection because everybody's in state, but it'll be interesting to see for sure. Makes you wonder, if Coach Day is going to take a flyer on somebody like a Joe Brady. But we'll see.
We'll see.
But there's a lot to look forward to for next season. And we'd be remiss, I guess, if we didn't kind of just throw some thoughts out, on what the 2023 season was for each of us. From on your side, I'm sure you saw a lot of scheme things. From my side, as a fan, it was disappointing. I think because we got the Notre Dame win. And I was like, this is that turning point,
Uh-oh. You there? Cut out for a second. There we go.
I'm not going to beat Kyle up. And, for me, we knew the season was going to go as the O-line went. The defense obviously was incredible. There were hiccups, but it's a 12-game Division I college football season. There's going to be hiccups.
Yep.
I think that the offense tried a lot of things. I think there were times that Kyle focused too much on Marv. I.e., the interception to start the game against Team Up North.
That
was a little bit of a forced ball. But there were also times that I think the O-line didn't do Kyle any favors. And I guess the only thing that I will say about Kyle, for all of Kyle led us to a good season.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately for Kyle, we've been spoiled. To go from Dwayne to Justin to CJ, and Kyle, unfortunately, is just not any of those three. That's just not his. He's got a stronger arm than people think. But his O-line didn't do him any favors, and I think his pocket presence is probably the only thing I'll say that I did not see improve all year. And as you and I have talked a lot on the defensive side of the ball, I think the biggest thing that disappointed me was, just the lack of production from the D-line, numbers-wise. Now, in the Noles defense, sack numbers don't matter. And I think, the elephant in the room is obviously the disconnect between, Coach Knowles and Larry, if it exists. But I think we're finally seeing that taken care of.
I do too.
So as disappointing as 23 ended, for 24, there's a whole lot to be excited about. To the point that, as a fan, it's easy to say, but I almost think it gives me a little bit of anxiety because there is so much to look for. We have the leadership, we've got the talent, and that's one thing I feel like that sets this squad apart from how we talked about the team up north, and they had all of those leaders and older guys, but they haven't recruited at a real high clip. Now we have leaders, we have talent, and we recruited at a real high clip. So I'm excited for 24 for sure.
I just got a text message that we'll have to talk about when we're not on here, by the way.
Awesome.
That could be very telling about something we were just talking about. Yeah, no. So the 2023 season, first off, I'm a defensive guy. I think what Coach Knowles has done with the defense, he's done exactly what I think Coach Day brought him in here to do. I think the one thing you can tell, in my opinion, when if you want to know if a coach is a good coach, they are able to adjust their scheme to the players that they have. If you go back and you watch what Coach Knowles did at Duke, if you go back and watch what he did at Oklahoma State, it's very different from a structure standpoint than what we saw the past year. Even if you look back to last year, you saw a lot more blitzes. You saw a lot more cover one. You saw a lot more of defensive linemen dropping in the coverage and things like that. Like he wants to be creative. The big thing that I noticed was Coach Day said, eliminate the big play, and he ran a defense that allowed us to eliminate the big play. And he did that for the most part all year long. And I think that is a good coach. I do think there was some sort of disconnect between the defensive line and what Coach Knowles actually wanted. But I think you're starting to see a little bit of that change. You even saw some of that change even against Missouri. Just the defensive line, just being more aggressive, making plays and things like that. I think you're going to see that progress. I think that's also a reason why Coach Day was able to or allowed Coach Knowles to go get his guy and Coach G. So I think you're going to see that defense even take another step forward. So I was very excited with the way the defense played. One of somebody I was talking to basically said our defense turned into Iowa's defense and basically said that as like a slight. And I said, dude, Iowa's defense is really good every single year. Phil Parker is one of the best coordinators in the country. So if that's what we are next year, that's what we are. It's fine. I'd like to see us get a little bit more aggressive in the red zone, but that's just me nitpicking. As a coordinator myself, I don't always get aggressive. So, you do what works best. Offensively, I don't want to say I was disappointed in anything offensively. I would have just liked to see Coach Day be Coach Day. I wanted to see him be more aggressive. And I know with the first year starter quarterback, there is that hesitation, but I do think he tried to play to the strengths of Kyle. And when you feel there may be some sort of limitation, which I don't know. I'm not in those rooms. I don't know Kyle's processing or anything like that. But if Coach Day felt like there was some things that made him hesitant about calling certain plays, okay, and if that's what you think, you still found a way to have a productive offense. You still found a way to win games. You won 11 games. The game, obviously the game that will always be under our skin is against a team up north. But I'm going to be completely transparent about that. I am an eternal optimist. You could tell me that the second coming of Steve Bellisari is going to be our quarterback, and I'm riding for him no matter what. Hey, I'm going to find a strength that he has, and that's our guy. For as bad as we say our offense was and our offensive line was, we had the ball with a minute left, driving down the field with an opportunity to go beat the national champs. We did not get out physical that game. We did not get outplayed that game. Well, I don't want to say we didn't get outplayed. Up front, we got a little outplayed at times, but we still had the opportunity to go down the field and score a touchdown. And if the pass protection was a little better, okay. If Kyle doesn't throw that first interception, okay. But even with all that, you still had a chance to beat. You had the ball with the chance to beat the national champs. You could argue that this team was a top 4 team still in the country. The Missouri game's a Missouri game. I mean, Lincoln wasn't even expecting to play. We were all in on Devin Brown. Whatever happened with Carson Hinsman happened. You put Enoch in, you got Matt Jones, who hadn't played center all year. There was going to be, and you're going up against a good team. This was their national championship, and it should have been. And so that, the way it ended, obviously a little disappointed, but the way that we've attacked this offseason, it shows me that the culture is strong, that the kids feel welcomed in that building, that Coach Day has created an atmosphere where, they feel like they can come back. They don't have to leave. They're not being pushed out. And, And so I'm excited about 2024. I'm excited to see, who we get, to call the plays if that happens. I think it's going to be has the opportunity to be a fun year. Obviously got some things to figure out on the offensive line. I got a guy that I think should be starting.
I'm
But
with you.
yeah.
I'm with you.
But I'll keep that to myself. I'm a little bit of I have some biases when it comes to that. But I think it has an opportunity to be a huge year, and what a perfect year. First year of the 12-team playoff. Why not the Buckeyes kicking it off with the national championship?
I mean, we won the first 14 ones. So,
Exactly.
we like to do things first.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot to be excited about, not only on the season front, but, this venture that we're on is super exciting. We're not doing this to get rich. We're not doing this to get famous.
Yeah.
We're doing this to just have an outlet to talk. I think we're both super blessed that we have a lot of people who, especially during the season, reach out to us both and pick our brains. And, what do you see? What do you think?
Yeah.
So be patient with us. We're not
Yeah.
overly techie. We're not going to
no.
try to wow you with bells and whistles. As you hear my chair creak when I move. But so be patient with us. But one thing we want to do every episode, and obviously it'll start out pretty Buckeye heavy, but we might change it, here and there, is going to do a Mount Rushmore. Our top 4 of something. So we found it only fitting that for today's, it's our top 4 Buckeyes of all time. Not who we think the best are, just who truly are the 4 guys who, if, gun to your head, you've got to name 4 guys, you're naming right off the rip. So for me, it's kind of a funny list. You've got some guys with some accolades, and you've got some guys who, a lot of common fans, I don't want to say common fans, but like guys that are new to being Ohio State fans, may not even know. So for me, obviously, and this isn't going to be in any order outside of number 1. My Twitter handle, my email, everything is Bucknut27. Eddie. I mean, Eddie George is, number 1, for no reason. And then you got to follow that up with Mike Doss. The OT run being such a vital part to my fandom. I went and bought the number 2 jersey at JCPenney when it was still open. It was the first Ohio State jersey I ever owned.
That's awesome.
Had the Mike Doss OSU and the Eddie George Titans jersey. Those were the 2. And then number 3 for me is a dude who I am incredibly blessed to have had numerous conversations with. Is Cardell Jones. The dude is a class act.
12 gauge, man. He's great, dude.
He not only led us to a natty that I will fight you till I'm blue in the face that we don't win that natty without him.
Yeah. It's the way he can stretch the field, man.
He is. And the dude is a clown. I mean, as I've gotten to know him, his sense of humor is incredible. Quick little Cardell caveat. She'll probably kill me for telling this story. I was at Cardell's apartment one night after he had declared for the draft, and he walked me down because his apartment building, him and JT were the only football players in this complex. And walks me down. I'm, getting in the car. Jaden was with me. Jaden was like 7 at the time. No, he would have been like 9. Sabrina's sitting in the car. Cardell pounds on her window because she was playing on her phone, and he's got his face pressed up against the glass of the window of the car, and she looks and just jumps. And so, he makes her get out of the car, give her a hug. So that was cool. And the number 4 for me is probably a dude who's really unheralded, and it's Brian Roll.
Oh, yeah.
Another guy who I've gotten to know. But in today's game, I think Brian would be a safety.
Oh, man.
And he would have been a headhunter at safety.
Dude, he was a stud. I thought I root for anybody who's short. I'm not gonna lie. If you're vertically challenged, I'm a fan.
I get it. So yeah, those are my 4 though.
That's awesome. That's a good list. I go back and forth. I try not to be like, oh well, I want to just pick guys on defense because I'm a defensive guy. I don't want to just pick quarterbacks, but there are some people that I just couldn't deny. My number one would be Braxton Miller. And it's not even close. Like it's Braxton Miller by a lot. Um, why? Because he stuck with his commitment even after Tatgate happened. He stuck around after that 6 and 7 year. I mean, he was just getting obliterated. He gave us one of the biggest Buckeye wins outside of our natties that I can think of against Wisconsin. That throw that he had to Devin Smith, like that was that that will always stand out to me. And honestly, I think he's the reason why Urban Meyer came to Ohio State. I firmly believe that. You think about Urban's offenses and the type of guys that he had, you weren't going to find a better fit than Braxton Miller, as long as he stayed healthy. So he will always be my number one. I hate that he jacked up his shoulder, but the one thing that will stand out to me about that as well, like, he messed up his shoulder that stopped him from being able to play quarterback, and he stayed in the game against Clemson. You know what I mean? And like, he still battled. Like that dude just wanted to be a Buckeye. So Braxton Miller will always be my number one. You see the number 5 hanging in the background. Like that is my guy. My second, now this dude has got a lot of controversy, but you can't tell me that when he came to Ohio State, it wasn't one of the biggest gets ever, and that's Terrell Pryor. TP, man, like he was such a polarizing guy. And for him with his skill set, to come want to play in a I formation offense, under Jim Tressel, like that, to me, that says a lot about him. He could have gone to Florida, somewhere that was going to fit, exactly what, he was really good at, but he chose to come to Ohio State. And I like what he did. I remember him when we played Texas, and Todd Beckman was at quarterback, and they put TP out at receiver, and they threw him that jump ball.
Yes.
That was the day. That was the day he became like one of my favorite players. I'm like, oh, so this guy can dominate out there too if we really needed him to. But his loyalty to Tress is something that will always stand out to me. Obviously, Tress, was very loyal to him. I would say he was very loyal to him as well. But TP would definitely be my number 2. I just enjoyed watching him play. Number 3, now this is where, like, I know we're supposed to do top 4, but this gets tough for me. So Malcolm Jenkins and Donnie Nicky, they've got to be 3A and 3B. I think Malcolm Jenkins' versatility. I can't remember the exact game. He had that pick 6 though, and just the way that he went into the end zone and the NFL career that he had, playing a position that he didn't play at Ohio State, is he was always somebody that I had a ton of respect for. I think, when we talk about BIA, I think he was such an embodiment of what they want that room to be. And then Donnie Nicky, from Plain City, Ohio, like, you didn't see too many guys like him, too many white safeties out there, during that time. And I know that he wasn't a heralded guy, but he wore my favorite number in 25, man. And to see him out there playing and, the national championship game. And I just always was a big fan of him. I thought he was underestimated because he was back there with Mike Doss, obviously. Totally get that. I think he got overlooked at time, but he went out and he had a really productive NFL career too. So he was up there for me as well. And then my last one, I know I just did 4 already, but my last one, Antoine Winfield. That dude, man, the physicality he brought to the corner position is something that at the time, like, I had never seen. And to this day, when I'm coaching corners, like, I'm trying to coach them to be like Antoine Winfield, whether they want to be or not. I know that's a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing. He's great. He's one of the best ever. So I always will root for him. He's definitely up there for me as well. So if I had to do a top 4 Mount Rushmore, my favorite Buckeyes ever, like, that would be Donnie Nicky and Malcolm Jenkins would have to be a tie, but that would be my group. That would be my group of guys for sure.
I got to give you props on the Donnie Nicky reference. Like I've said a couple times today, the sports memorabilia world and stuff. There's a card shop in Plain City. Ryan owns the shop. It goes by Card Collector too, and is a massive Donnie Nicky fan. Like in the memorabilia world, we all have like what's called our PC, our personal collection, and Ryan's collection's insane. And but he will tell you at the end of the day what started it all for him was Donnie Nicky. So props on that.
Yeah, Donnie Nicky's the man. Yeah, he is the man. Well, I really think that's it. I think that's what we're going to wrap up with. Before we get off here, first off, like Jeremy said, thanks to our families and everybody who supporting us going out for this. We're not trying to get rich or anything like that. Like you said, this is just something that two dudes who love the Buckeyes who want to come out and have fun with. The one thing I do want to say, this is going to be airing on Martin Luther King Day. So I just hope that we all take the time to kind of reflect on the type of guy Martin Luther King Jr. was. Because of people like him, we're able to do things like this together. So I hope that tomorrow, when most of us are enjoying our day off or whatever, that you just really take the time to reflect on who he was as a man, and just hope to be the best people that we can be for our communities out here. So that's all I got, my guy.
That I'm with you, brother. That is all I've got. And, just again, thanks everybody for, hopefully the support that'll come from this. And from here on out, we're going to plan on dropping new episodes on Tuesdays. So look forward to that. And with that, we're going to go ahead and hit end here. And we will see you guys next week.
All right. Take it easy, man.
All right, man. You too.